Good afternoon. I call to order the Hamilton County Board of Commission staff meeting of May the 11th and a beautiful afternoon. We also have our assistant to the clerk and our county administrator with us today. So welcome.
Thanks.
We're going to start out. We have quite a few things on our agenda. Our first agenda item is the comprehensive COVID-19 update.
Good afternoon, commissioners. I appreciate the opportunity to give some updates. I will start with my my traditional PowerPoint. If you could just confirm that you can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Wonderful. So things here in Hamilton County continue to be moving positively forward. Our cases are actually on the decline since I last had the opportunity to update the commission. We have about 3,000 active cases in Hamilton County. Last time I briefed the commission, it was closer to 3,200. So we're happy to see that drop. In addition, when you look at our average cases per day, the last 7 days, we were at about 70 cases per day. So we are finally under that 100 threshold that we've been holding at for quite some time. Our variants in Hamilton County, we have about 60 of them. The majority of the variants are the UK variant. Once again, this is not a surprise. We're very happy that the vaccine is effective against the variant. So if anyone is concerned that there are variants here in Hamilton County, I know one way to take care of that concern, and it's to get vaccinated. Positivity for Hamilton County remains right around 4.5%. No great change there either. And same with our reproductive number, because our cases have started to drop over the last few days. We have seen that reproductive number drop to 0.84. Once again, this number ties very closely to our case count. So very predictable at this point. Hospitalizations continue to be low. We are at 140 individuals within our 14 county region within the hospital systems. Of those, 44 people are in the intensive care unit and 35 individuals on ventilators. Once again, the number one way to stay out of the hospital is get vaccinated. We know it's extremely effective at preventing serious illness. And so if you're concerned about COVID and its impacts, we would encourage you to get vaccinated. As far as the Ohio alert system, thankfully, because our number of cases per day are dropping, this number is starting to drop. As soon as that number falls below 100 cases per 100,000 over a 2-week rolling average, we as a county will transition back to orange. Right now, you may recall, we are red with high incidence of COVID. So I'm actually predicting that within 2 weeks, if we stay on the same trajectory, we should be able to end up as a county in orange, which would be good news. We've hung out here for quite some time. Looking at our schools, I was sharing this with our superintendents this past week. These are cases of both students and staff within our school systems. As of last week's reporting to the state of Ohio, we had 24 students and 4 staff. You can really see there in beginning of March, late February, where we saw such a decline, and that is 100% attributed to the vaccination of our teaching staff and other school employees. So schools have certainly had a long year, and I am happy that because of vaccinations, we are kind of moving schools out of that phase of the pandemic. So biggest thing in the news right now is clearly that Pfizer vaccine has been approved by the FDA for 12 to 15-year-olds. I want to caution that approval is just one of 4 approvals necessary here in Ohio before we can start using the vaccine. The next approval will be by the Centers for Disease Control on the 12th. They will review the data, and they will review the approval from the FDA, and it is highly anticipated that on May 12th, this Wednesday, tomorrow, the ACIP will approve the vaccine, which then goes to the CDC director. As soon as the CDC director has this information, I'm sure he's been reviewing the data. She has been reviewing the data all along, and it is anticipated that that approval will also happen on May 12th. And quickly following, Governor DeWine and the Ohio Department of Health will authorize the use of Pfizer in 12 to 15-year-olds here in Ohio. Once again, when you look at the data, it's really strong as to the effectiveness of this vaccine. The study looked at about 2,200 adolescents, and in that study group, it was found to be 100% effective, which is huge. Now, certainly there will be vaccine breakthrough where individuals do get sick, but by and large, this vaccine has been extremely effective at combating COVID-19. Any clinic that Hamilton County Public Health offers will that has Pfizer vaccine will continue to operate and will accept anyone that is 12 years and older moving forward once we have that approval, hopefully on Wednesday. Our agency has already partnered with several schools. We have clinics already set up, many of which were originally intended for 16 and older. We will transition those and start accepting 12-year-olds. And our goal is just to continue to make vaccine as accessible as possible throughout our community, throughout our schools, and to make sure that if you want a vaccine, it is available to you. How are we doing as a county? I'm going to share two numbers. The first is the Get Out the Vax campaign's thermometer that I think we are all so familiar with. When you look at those individuals that are eligible to be vaccinated, which at this snapshot in time is anyone over the age of 16, we have successfully vaccinated 52% of those folks. In Hamilton County, if you look at the total population, we are now inching up to 43.4% of the total population has been vaccinated. So these are all great successes, and I continue to anticipate week after week to see more vaccine getting into the arms of Hamilton County residents and protecting our population from COVID. Now, certainly as we enter this week in the vaccine campaign, we have continued to see a slowing of the rate of vaccinations. So when you look at each age group, you can notice that slope increase each week, but we're not seeing as many folks, say, for example, as 2 months ago, getting vaccinated each week. So right now we're starting to shift some of our messaging. You've heard me talk for weeks now about making sure that we are bringing vaccine to the community. Kroger clinics throughout Hamilton County all now accept walk-ups. So if you're grocery shopping and you're in a Kroger, you can walk up to the pharmacy and request to be vaccinated right then and there. So we are really working hard to make sure that we create access, and we really are working hard towards that community goal of getting our population to 80% vaccinated. And when you look at those in the older age groups, those that are most susceptible to COVID, we've really made great progress and are getting very close to getting everyone over the age of 65 to that golden standard of 80% of our population. Last slide I have here just talks and shows a little bit about what we've been doing in our community. This week, we did receive a vaccination van from the Ohio Department of Health. I was a little unclear what that van may look like and what that setup may look like. The pictures on the left with the generators here, this is the ODH vans and their trailer that comes with it. And these are their staff manning some vaccination sites. We're going to be using these vans along with the Hamilton County Public Health vans to go to a variety of sites, including schools, apartment buildings, village halls, such as right there in the town square, or even within the village, like a community center. We're looking at transit locations and farmers markets. We've got a brew pub on the schedule. We've been working with Great Parks of Hamilton County and the public library system, as well as manufactured home parks and movie theaters. So we're really just getting out there and getting creative and trying to find out what works best and how we can reach folks the best. In addition, we're doing some quality improvement to see which types of locations are most effective at getting folks out and getting them vaccinated. But we are continuing to make progress and looking forward to continuing to get more folks vaccinated in the coming weeks. I will stop there and turn it over to you for questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Kesterman, and thank you for your consistency and your comprehensive reports. And of course, the data that you show and the graphs are very helpful to understand. So I'll open it up for any questions or comments. Vice President Reese.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Health Commissioner Kesterman, for this report. It's good to know that we're going down and we're vaccinating people. That's going up. So that's really good seeing that, and excited about the creative ways now where we'll have full mobile fleets, and certainly we'll be adding our bus toward I believe in a couple weeks, we'll be adding our bus as well. But I like we're moving now toward what I call retail approach. I just left Holy Grail on the banks, and I was there with Mercy Health, and they were vaccinating the restaurant workers around there, the people who lived in the apartments on the banks, and people were coming in just getting walk-ups today. So we'll see those kind of things, and I'm excited about that to help get our numbers up. I wanted to ask you about this FDA approval piece. Once this gets approved, what does that mean? Walk us through that. Is that, I mean, right now the shots are free. And we're doing it through public health. And I think that's very important. There is no cost to it. But when FDA usually gets involved, now we're talking about something that's a prescription or something that you got to pay a copay when you go see the doctor or something like that. Will that affect us in any kind of way when that happens?
So just so I'm clear, are you talking about the 12 to 15-year-olds, or are you talking about when the FDA looks for full approval for the Pfizer vaccine?
I'm talking about the Pfizer vaccine. I know a lot of not a lot, but there's some people waiting on that FDA approval.
Got it.
I know they're trying to move toward that, but I know when they start talking about getting it at the doctor, there's a copay, or somebody's got to pay, or a pharmacy. There's always some payment that it goes along with it.
Yes. So as of right now, there are providers that are accepting insurance at the time of vaccination, and they will charge insurance if they're able to. Public health is not, neither the county health district nor is the city of Cincinnati Health Department accepting insurance. We're vaccinating without insurance, no fees, no charges, no nothing. With the FDA approval that is anticipated, hopefully in the next month or two, but potentially as long as 6 months from now, what it will do is it will provide even greater confidence in the safety of this vaccine. Insurance will still be able to be charged. My understanding is, though, under no circumstance at any provider in Hamilton County or the state of Ohio should you be allowed to turn someone away if they don't have insurance, meaning this vaccine is for everyone and everyone should get vaccinated regardless of the ability to pay. So I think that will not change. I don't anticipate any change there. I think the one other thing that will happen with the FDA approval, right now, if you work in a clinical setting, most clinical offices require flu shots for their employees. And that's been standard practice for a long time, for many decades. COVID-19 in most employment settings is not mandated. That vaccine is only got temporary authorization. And until the FDA approves it, I don't think we'll see many employers take the jump and require it. But once that FDA approval happens, I think we will see clinical settings move towards mandatory vaccinations, and potentially other employment locations require vaccination once it's fully approved. I think those are the biggest changes that I would anticipate when we see that happen.
Thank you. I wanted to just highlight that because I was concerned that, there would now be a charge, that would be on the person. When we finally have broken down a lot of barriers, we got rid of pre-registration. You can do walk-ups now. We made it a lot easier. And I just wanted to make sure that there wasn't going to be a cost thing that would be another obstacle that, someone might have to overcome to get it.
Yep.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Dreehouse.
Yeah, and just a couple of things. Greg, so the one chart that you have that breaks the demographics out by age, and you've got those, the curves heading up. Is there a way to combine all ages together so they're all on one chart and we can see all of it instead of separate charts for that?
You can see vaccinations that's displayed on the Ohio Department of Health on their coronavirus.ohio.gov. I'd be happy to try and throw something together though to visualize so that we can see that everything is still moving in that upward direction.
Yeah, I think the visual is just a little, it's a little confusing because there are really two charts given the age breakdown. So yeah, I would love to see a chart that has all the ages together so we can see the trajectory. It really, to make your point that we're having a lot of success with the older population. And I think maybe we need to make it a competition between the older population and the youngs, right? So,
yep. If I may,
I'll doing pretty well. I don't know, right?
I'll share my screen one more time. This is just Hamilton County. This is cumulative vaccinations since we started the campaign. So this is exactly that. We're still heading up, but the daily increase is not nearly as much as it was back here.
Right. But look at those numbers for we're over 80% in some of these categories. So I just want to highlight that and visualize that on your chart. So if you can get, it's not the end of the world. Two other things. One is that I too want to point out that you're everywhere. You just continue to think of ways to reach out to people in different venues where people might be willing and to get the vaccine, and those that we haven't gotten vaccinated yet. So it continues to be I know a bit of an effort on your part, but just want to highlight that and compliment you on that. And we've also, and I know you have done it too, reached out to 50 West in some of the other bars to see if maybe we can, I heard this on the national news today. It's the shot with the chaser. And so, it's a marketing thing. I know, Greg, that sometimes we have these great ideas and they're not as popular as we would hope they would be, but maybe 50 West seems to be open to the idea of doing a vaccine clinic out at their site. And so maybe there's an opportunity. They got a lot of young folks moving through that facility. So
absolutely. Yeah. Anyone who's willing to host us at this point, we're working hard to get out there, and the places that do bring a bigger crowd, we'll make sure we put more effort into going back week after week and continuing to just vaccinate our community one shot at a time.
Right. And so then lastly, I have been thinking through how the county can lead as we, June 1st, we're all supposed to be coming back to work with a couple of exceptions. But, as we do that, I'm thinking through, the folks that are in the building, in the county buildings, vaccinated. We have encouraged people to get vaccinated, and I think we've made it as easy as possible. But I've been talking to Administrator Aludo a little bit about how the county can lead in this space, and if there is an incentive program perhaps that we can implement. Maybe it's with the wellness bucks, with our wellness program. People get wellness bucks if they either have already gotten vaccinated or are willing to get vaccinated, just as an enticement to make sure that the county is leading in this space and saying, hey, we're trying to get to 100. So I just want to put that on the table too. I know Jeff has been thinking through that with Frank, but just I'm excited to think about what the county can do to continue to advance the messaging here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I think that's a great point as it relates to the incentives. So we can't tell people to do as we say, but not as we do. So I think that would be great and interesting to see how that comes out.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much. I would like to ask Bridget, though, if there's anyone in the queue as we talk about the comprehensive update on COVID-19. We may have some residents that might have called in knowing it was on the agenda.
Thank you, Madam President. I do not see any comments at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to item 2, which is Wesley Chapel Mission Center Pandemic Operations Update. Kevin Corey, Executive Director, is here with us.
Good afternoon, Madam Commissioner Sarah Dumas, Commissioner Reese, Madam Commissioner, I think Dreyhouse, and as well as your staff as well. First of all, thank you for inviting me to speak with you and present to you Wesley Chapel Mission Center, ma'am. Mm-hmm. I'm the Executive Director of the Wesley Chapel Mission Center. The Wesley Chapel Mission Center is located here in Oberheim. It is the largest after-school program. We're open to approximately 400 child-age children who live in the Oberheim area. One thing significant about us is that we remain open while other youth centers that provided youth education and care centers were shut down during the pandemic time. We was able to do that because, number one, as myself, I'm a contact tracer. I've been certified since the early part of last year as we were getting ready to combat the whole COVID-19 situation. By staying open, of course, that made our center very viable as it relates to use for the community, the neighborhood kids. We serve pretty much our population. 90% of our students are from single family households. 100% of them receive public assistance. We operate in an area that has the highest crime rate in the city of Cincinnati as it relates to the neighborhood, the Oberheim area. Our kids see daily prostitution, drug use, gunfire, parties, violence. And what we're doing is we've been able to give the kids an outlet during that time and even now, what we do is we assist the kids pretty much in just supplementing or supporting their spiritual, emotional, and physical needs and developing a relationship with these kids. I just asked a teacher recently, how does your school look after the pandemic? How does it look during this time where the kids was trying to master the virtual reality as it relates to the virtual learning part? And they just said, out of our 200 kids, 200 of them are having problems reading. And that's what makes our program so pertinent, is that when others closed down, when others ran away, when there was nothing for kids to look forward to or to go to, we were still open during that time. We had a lot of kids, that was just, even our daily operation times are 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. But we had kids dropping in before then because they would wake up because they didn't have any other place to go. No parents there. They would come here and be like, I'm looking for help. I'm looking, hey, I'm hungry. I need some food. And we're like, because we have a relationship with the kids. We have, where your parents at? And a lot of answers will be, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
That's what made it so crucial for us to remain open and to not do like others and to be shut down during that time. And we'll continue to do that as long as we go by the CDC rules, which govern the way we operate, and myself as a contact tracer as well.
Mm-hmm.
Some of our challenges, and as it relates to some of the things that we've been faced with, is just we did a 40 development aptitude test with our kids, and we found out that one of the main answers that came back that they answered was just a lack of community support. They feel that they don't have support. They feel that they don't have a lot of positive activities to look forward to because, once again, because of where we're located, but the thing is, we try to provide that by just giving the kids a support system that they can't find in other places. Some of them can't even find that at home because, once again, there's nobody at home. There's nobody at home to support them. Not only that, we help the kids. One of our main things that we do help the kids, we help them with not only reading, homework, we help them with job skills. And the most important thing we have, and why the kids continue to come here, is because of relationship building. We establish a relationship with these kids. We know every kid here by name, and they know us by name. And unfortunately, some of the people who are the adults who are involved with some of the criminal activities, they also know us by name, because we're not somebody who, because of what they do, we hold no biases against them. We know that they're just a work in progress, and that's what we try to do. We pretty much do a holistic approach. We not only try to take care of the children, but we also try to take care of the families. And that's why I'm coming before you today and letting you know, some of the things that we need to continue to be as thoroughly and structurally positive as it relates to our operation within the Over the Rhyme area. If you don't know where we're at, if you know where Grant Park is at, we're directly across the street from Grant Park. And if you're aware of the crime related to Grant Park, in the last 2 years, because I hear this all the time at the police meetings, last 2 years, out of the 12 homicides that happened in the Over the Rhyme area, 11 out of the 12 took place within 100 yards of Grant Park. 11 out of 12. Grant Park is looking more like a graveyard than it is a playground right now, because there's always memorabilia that's being placed around there in remembrance of someone. I mean, if I look out the window right now, I might see a balloon flying right by my window, just recognizing someone who was either killed there or, this year, last year, or in the pastimes. And that's why our program is so important, ma'am. Some of the things that we need, and I just want to get to that because I want to be very mindful of your time, because I appreciate the time that I was presented with. I'm humbled by it. One of the needs that we need is we're looking for, to hire an additional staff, funding to hire additional staff, and for financing a GED program. In the Over the Rhyme area, there's not a GED program to include a teacher and assistant. And we look at it like this, and I have operated in areas like this before. The kids cannot learn if the parents don't know how to read. Sometimes I ask the kid, I say, hey, I want you to go home, and I want your parents to read this book to you, because we'll have the kids take home books. They said, there's nobody to read to me. They said, my mom can't read. So I looked at that and I said, okay, now we need to structure and strengthen some other family units, some other family, areas in their life. And what we're trying to do right now is we're looking at, we have the teacher, because Camp Washington is closing down they're going from education, from their GED program. So we already met with that instructor and also the director over there to bring that program over here. But the funding for that ends at the end of this year. Also, we're looking to do is a technology camp. What I like to do is turn this to a place. A lot of our kids, they don't know anything about technology. To them is their cell phone. Technology to them is playing Xbox. We would like to teach the kids, introduce to the kids robotics, coding, 3D printing, and also the other one is just creative writing. Every day during that program, the kids will be presented with opportunities to give presentations. As you know, it's so important for someone to know how to give a presentation. And our kids shy away from that in schools because nobody's introduced them or taught them that. When the school comes and somebody offered them, hey, we're gonna have a technology program, the kids don't raise their hand. They don't know what technology program is. Well, the kids in this Over the Rhyme area, they're gonna know what a technology program is because we're gonna teach them. Another thing that we're looking at is a mental health specialist. We have had kids as the lowest grade, a first grader, just recently this year was talking about suicide. A lot of these kids are facing mental health challenges, and we would like just bring on board a mental health specialist to just provide those services and counseling for our children. And as it relates to what we're trying to make an investment in, when you look at the problems that we have, the limited options that our kids have don't allow them to see or even seek purpose. They don't know what purpose is because nobody's showing them purpose. The only purpose that they see out here is prostitution, drug dealers, people being arrested, fights, continuously cussing, loud music, shootings, gambling, addicts. And I'm going to tell you this right now. A lot of kids come here sometimes just to get some sleep. And we ask them, why didn't you sleep last night? They say, hey, because somebody was playing loud music outside of our house last night. We're here to be the answer to the problems that exist right here, especially within the Over the Rhyme. Over the Rhyme is always spoken about, business-wise. Oh, it's very fruitful. It's going great. But how about the people that are not a part of that, the business area? There are still people that live here in Over the Rhyme. They're not moving because they've been here. Now I'm going to just pause for any questions that you may have.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you so much for presenting your program.
Thank you.
and the impact that you're having in that area is so needed. We all are concerned about our youth. And so I would just suggest that as we look at our American Rescue Plan later, we're going to have public hearings also. If you think your agency would be one that may need additional funding, certainly I would write those things that you do up in a proposal, not to present at the public hearing, but just because you only have a couple minutes. But I just thank you for what you're doing, and also the young ones, and bringing them up so they can see positive people in their neighborhood. I'll open it up for the other commissioners. Vice President Reese.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. I just echo your words, and certainly the advice to Mr. Corey to present a proposal, that of some of the programs that you've talked about, because a lot of things that you've hit on are very important. And I know we as a board, a lot of things that you said, we have been certainly focused on. Mental health is very important to us, and our youth. Saving our youth and technology, all of those things kind of fit the bigger strategy in terms of how we move our county forward. Only thing that I would possibly add, and we have Jeff Aludo on. He's our county administrator. We also have we approved as a board. We approved some grants programs for nonprofits.
Yes.
To our community, I think it was Community Black Grant Dollars through Joy. I'm not sure if any of your programs fall within that, or I think it's on the street now. I'm not sure if it's closed already. But even if so, I know that there's more dollars that might be coming through that avenue as well. So maybe that's a partnership with the community that you're in, and maybe that might be a possibility. I'm not sure, but I wanted to at least maybe Mr. Aludo, if not now, but sometime after this call, maybe someone can share with Mr. Corey all of the options that we have available for potential funding. And then he can kind of see, based on his programs, where his programs may plug in to some things that we have already put, money in the buckets for.
Yes, thank you.
And Madam President, and commissioners, Mr. Corey, thank you for that. I'm happy to circle back with Mr. Corey after this meeting, especially as we start to get into the ARP funding conversation as well. Some of our federal entitlement grants, like CDBG, are limited in geographic scope to outside the city, since the city does receive its own CDBG, but there may be other things, like sometimes there's some exemptions to the home grant. So we're happy to circle up and look at options that might specifically, even through JFS, because of the variety of programs that Mr. Corey operates through this operation. There's just so many things that fall right within the wheelhouse of some of the strategic policy directions of the board. So we'll want to make sure that we look at every opportunity we have to hook in with what's going on at the chapel. So thank you for that. Mr. Corey, I'm happy to give you a shout either later today or sometime tomorrow, just to circle back on some of this.
All right, sir. Did you need my number or what information?
I'll get it from the clerk after the meeting. So no need to provide it publicly, but I'll definitely reach out.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Commissioner Dreehouse.
Yeah, thank you. And I too want to say thank you for the work that you're doing. I drive past that location every day coming into work. So it's a tough spot. So thank you for being there, and thank you for serving, especially the youth. I did ask Jeff, the administration, if you had received any of the previous funding through the CARES Act, and you have not. And so maybe there is an opportunity, moving forward. We're likely to do some of the same kind of work with nonprofits, with youth programming. And so let's make sure, and it sounds like the other commissioners are already suggesting the same, make sure you have the information you need and understand the eligibility requirements, because that's going to be critical to getting some of the funding. So we'll have the public hearings. Madam Commissioners, I'm sure, like you, I am receiving requests or really just people telling their stories. It's more than a request, really. It's just people saying, we're trying to help. Is there an opportunity to partner? And so I think that's, Mr. Corey, what you're saying too. So
Yeah.
think that the public hearing is a great idea, and we will get a better sense of, what the needs still are in the community and where to put those dollars as we move forward.
Yes. First of all, thank you all for your time, for your attention. Thank you for letting us tell our story. And I will have that proposal ready very soon. And I'm just looking forward to what we together can do to uplift this community, this county, and as well as this state.
Mhm. And Mr. Corey brings forward to me what Jeff and I had talked about during our meeting on Monday. The smaller entities that are doing great things that we either don't hear about, don't know about. I'll sometimes go through Facebook and I'll see this group that's doing this great stuff with seniors or food or whatever. And so our ability to reach those groups, those small agencies, and so Jeff and I have been talking about. So if Mr. Corey had not come here, like Wesley Chapel, I've heard of Wesley Chapel, but as a church, but not what they were doing. So we have to make an effort and figure out some creative ways of how to reach those small entities that are doing great things. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, ma'am. Y'all have a blessing.
Okay, thanks. Item number 3, Mill Creek planning highlights. And we have several people on here. Steve Johns is here and Brian Wamsley. So I'm not sure, are you going to lead this off at all, Jeff?
Madam President, I was going to turn it directly over to Steve and Brian. So Steve,
Okay.
Are you kicking this off?
Yes, Jeff, I'm kicking it off real quick. And as you can see, I'm back in the office. So it's exciting to be back. Our group was able to do a lot of our work remotely. And so we are starting to transition back. And this is my first full week back. 2 floors right above you guys. And so really excited. I'm still working on getting my computer with a camera. So you're seeing me in the conference room that we have set up. So it's a little unusual. But I just wanted to take this opportunity to highlight some of the work that Brian Wamsley has been doing with others along the Mill Creek. And so Brian will be the primary speaker today. But when we're thinking about the quality of life in the county, we're always thinking about recreational assets, things where we can get more people outside. I think the pandemic really showed the importance of that. And so some of the work that's happening on the creek are helping people to actually get on the water, believe it or not. In the Mill Creek, water quality is going up so much. Brian will talk some about that. Mm-hmm. And also hike and bike facilities along the Mill Creek. So there's some really exciting things going on about that. With 49 jurisdictions in the county, it's always a challenge to get folks to think outside their boundaries and work together. But these efforts along the Mill Creek are things that really tie communities together. And we get excited about seeing the work they're doing with each other. So that's one of the reasons we love doing these projects. And also, we should say this idea of partnership, which came up in the previous session, our presentation, is also hugely important with this work. We do a lot of coordination with Great Parks of Hamilton County, other nonprofits like the Mill Creek Alliance. Both Brian and I serve on their board. They're a nonprofit that helps us with this work. And then that work also then becomes leverage. Brian will talk some about all the state dollars that these efforts help bring in to our county. So those are some of the reasons why we do this work, and Brian will get to some of the details. And so I'll be back for a second at the end of the presentation to talk a little bit about the fairgrounds, which is part of this Mill Creek work. But Brian will highlight some other items. Brian, you ready to take it away?
Thank you, Steve. I'm going to try and share my screen. We have a short presentation. Can you see my presentation?
Yes.
Okay. I hit the present, so it should pop into present mode here. There we go. Thank you again, County Commissioners, for giving us some time on your agenda today to talk about our most recent work. We are working in support, sorry, I got some notes because I just returned from my vacation. We are giving a quick overview of the Hamilton County Planning and Development Department's Community Planning Division's work on the Mill Creek in the past half year. This area has become a focus of our work over the past decade for several reasons. Some of we will briefly discuss in a few moments. Sorry. Some of the major themes of our work in the Mill Creek focus on bike trail planning, watershed planning, and some of the site-specific projects, such as the Hamilton County Fairgrounds. To begin the bike trail planning discussion, I will start with a mention of the Triangle Trail planning efforts. We have been working with the Connecting Active Communities Coalition, headed by Michelle Gottslich, and this group is the spearhead of the Triangle Trail planning efforts. The CACC team consists of jurisdictions in the immediate trail vicinity, as well as the Hamilton County Parks District and the Tri-State Trails Organization, the Mill Creek Alliance, and many other bike trail advocates. Our planning staff supports this effort by providing technical assistance to meet our local community's goals for a regional bike trail network and clean and beautiful streams. Our recent success has included a verbal agreement to purchase a land easement from Norfolk Southern Railroad near the borders of Sharonville and Evendale. The purpose of this easement is to secure the rights to build a bike trail and perform necessary stream restoration work to improve water quality and reduce flooding. I will have a slide shortly showing the location and extent of this easement and the project area. Also, we are working with the CACC to acquire a new round of resolutions of support for bike trail planning from our local Mill Creek communities and institutional stakeholders. These resolutions help to enhance our grant funding applications for trails and to build political support. These also help to keep the bike trail conversations fresh in the minds of the communities. Then thirdly, I will briefly discuss the Sharonville Downtown Bike Trail Study, a project that our planning staff guided to facilitate bike trail planning discussions in the Sharonville community. And are you seeing the slides change?
Yeah, it changed, huh?
Okay, thank you. This slide shows the proposed bike trail route called the Triangle Trail. This trail goes mostly north and south from the Ohio River Trail in the south to the top of Hamilton County and beyond. Parts of this trail are already developed while others are currently under stages of planning and funding procurement. The Triangle section of this trail connects Winton Woods Park with Sharon Woods Park and then all the way south to downtown Cincinnati, going through many communities along the way. We are working on various segments concurrently, focusing on the most promising segments and being opportunistic to achieve the most success.
Can I ask a quick question? Is that, oh, sorry. Is
I'll go back.
that along the Mill Creek? Is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, you're fine. Yeah, to highlight it a little bit, maybe I can use my mouse on this. Let me see. Can you see my mouse moving?
Yes.
So yeah, here's the triangle that we call the key piece or the cornerstone of our Triangle Trail. And there are segments of it built in Woodlawn, in Wyoming. We're trying to find segments of it that go through Arlington Heights and Lincoln Heights and Lockland. We're also working on this eastern segment with Evendale and Sharonville, which you'll see a little bit of that now. And then we're working with Hamilton County Parks on segments that go east and west directly through Glendale and some of those communities. Does that help? Okay. So here is an example of some recent work. This map shows a proposed land easement to be acquired from the Norfolk Southern Railroad. You can see the East Sharon Road going, you can see East Sharon Road going east and west, Reading Road going north and south. We are close to finishing a purchase on a land easement to secure the land east of the Mill Creek owned by the railroad. The area of this project is about 8.5 acres. To make this possible, the Mill Creek Alliance lined up a Clean Ohio Fund grant for property acquisition, and then secured another $320,000 from another grant, the Ohio EPA Section 319 grants, to fund phase 1 of our stream restoration work. So things are moving along quite fast on this project. And getting a deal done with the railroad is never an easy task. So we're quite proud of our work on this one. Along the Mill Creek Our trail planning and stream restoration team will contact private property owners to notify them of projects, build support, and sometimes to hopefully work out new land easements. One recent example is this property in Sharonville, a large 12-acre site which features a large section of virtually undevelopable floodplain. The Mill Creek Alliance Director, Dave Schmidt, and CACC leader, Michelle Gottslich, talked to this property owner, and through their conversations, we are far along in an effort to secure an 8+ acre floodplain area for conservation and stream restoration work. Additionally, we have had other property owners along the creek who have also donated substantial amounts of land for conservation and stream restoration. I wish I could name them all, but I can't really do that right now. Coming across these generous property owners willing to donate their land for this cause really brings home the importance of our efforts. This past year, Hamilton County planning staff helped Sharonville develop a bike trail feasibility study through our CDBG planning mini grants program. We worked closely with Sharonville Planning Department to study various routes through the community, and we prepared a study in the form of an online document called a story map. This study has lots of maps, 3D visuals, and data to help support bike trail planning efforts. Story maps are a dynamic way to tell a story combined with maps, images, videos, charts, and more. What I like is it's easy to share on social media, and our staff really prides itself on being at the forefront of new technologies. For this project, we developed bike trail pros and cons, cost estimates, and helped to spur important conversations with elected officials about bike trail planning. I wish I could dive into this more as I'm really proud of this work, but we're just kind of doing a summary right now. This project is an example of the kind of planning support we provide to our communities through our annual mini grant planning program. I mentioned before that the CACC is pursuing a fresh round of Triangle Trail resolutions of support. You can see a copy of one here. If the BOCC wanted to, we could use this template to create a resolution of our own. There is no financial clauses or requirements to sign in this resolution. They are very useful for getting grants and keeping the conversations alive. We are also working in support of the Canoes and Conversations event for 2021. This event is led by the CACC and MCA members. This event is primarily focused on bringing together elected officials, community leaders, and top-level administrators to discuss bike trail and stream restoration efforts. Also to mention that we have separate and parallel efforts focused on the public, but this event is focused on the decision makers who can bring great strides to bike trail planning work. The first Canoes and Conversations event in 2019 was a wonderful success, but due to COVID, we had to skip it in 2020. A generous Duke Energy grant allows us to bring additional amenities to this event, and it also includes Duke Energy staff support to help coordinate logistics. We try to make this event both fun and informative, and on top of that, we provide a free lunch. The date has been set for the late morning of Saturday, July 17th, 2021. RSVPs are going out now. The location will be at Salway Park, next to Spring Grove Cemetery, shown on this map. The canoe route will be short, but it gives us a safe and easy access to the creek and a bike trail to ride up to the access point. I'm actually going to skip that slide. Our staff works in tandem with local watershed planning organizations, but particularly the Mill Creek Alliance. Steve and I are both board members of this organization, as he mentioned earlier. Additionally, our staff has written numerous watershed action plans. We have worked with communities to improve zoning codes, parking lot codes, and landscape codes to reduce stormwater runoff, and help to facilitate community engagement activities to discuss important watershed issues. We have also played a role in the MSDGC consent decree and have been great partners in bringing additional value to sewer planning projects, but particularly the green infrastructure projects. Currently, we are helping MSD to develop the Lick Run Ambassadors Program. We have great interest in how the Lick Run project could facilitate community growth and redevelopment. For this slide, I just wanted to share that water quality improvements are definitely happening on the Mill Creek. The slide shows two graphs. This data comes from the Mill Creek Alliance's Water Quality Monitoring Program. The one on the left shows all three of Hamilton County's major creeks, the Great Miami, Mill Creek, and Little Miami. Just focusing on the Mill Creek in the middle, it shows the water quality attainment shows it in terms of blue is great, green is good, yellow is unsatisfactory, and red is bad in terms of warm water habitat, water quality attainment. So kind of just a simple stoplight. But if we just focus on the Mill Creek in 2017, we had a lot of sites with red or bad water quality that didn't meet the Clean Water Act standards. On the graph on the right, though, showing the 2020 data, we didn't have any red or bad sites. The average of all the main STEM stations in 2020 was a 3.99, meeting our Warm Water Habitat Clean Water Act equivalent standard, and it is the best we have seen in the Mill Creek Alliance's water quality monitoring program since 2013. Mike Miller, who prepared these graphs, had some hypotheses, but our overall takeaway is that the work that is being done on the Mill Creek is working. As I mentioned briefly before, we have been assisting MSD with the development of the Greenway Ambassador Program. We were told that the BSCC has already been briefed about this program in a previous staff meeting, so I'm not going to cover it too much here, but we were greatly involved in the Lick Run Project's community engagement and planning several years ago, so our staff is really excited about this monumental project coming to fruition. We are still very interested in taking the Lick Run Community Master Planning document from 2012 off the shelf and seeing how we can collaborate with the city and community to make it a reality. That wraps up my section, and Steve is going to talk about the fairground site.
Thank you, Brian. We all know that the county fairgrounds is a critical site along the Mill Creek. There's thousands of linear feet of creek that create some of the boundaries for the county fairgrounds. And we know that just about a year ago, we had the task force recommendations for the county fairgrounds. So we wanted to give you a quick update of what is happening there. You probably saw the article in the paper that talked about some of the new programming that is going on at the fairgrounds. There's the Cincy Speedway, which is some kind of motocross type activity. Also some expansion of horses on the site. There's an existing stable, and then looking for some horse training opportunities to bring in additional revenue to the site. Last year, because of COVID, they were unable to hold the fair, the Agricultural Society, but the state did send $50,000 of investment to all 88 county fairs, and that helped a good bit. But as we all know, the needs of the fairgrounds are much more than what that $50,000 could do. So that helped with some general maintenance items, some needs of the fairgrounds, but by no means has done everything they need. You can see in these two renderings that we're showing on the slide of some of the things we imagine at the historic entrance off of Anthony Lane, some increased landscaping, and just really, touching things up a bit could really make a difference there on the appearance of the site. And then at the Vine Street entrance on the top, just some really expanded landscaping there could make the site pop a whole bunch. We have heard that there are new personnel at the fairgrounds. There's several new board members. They have a board election every year in November, and that resulted last year in some new board members, some new energy, some new vision for the site. And also a new superintendent was appointed for the site, some of the caretaker, so to speak, for the site. So there is progress at the Hamilton County Fairgrounds. There's a lot of other entities that are trying to help out. The American Institute of Architects has offered to help with a charrette, a design charrette process. And that has taken a little extra effort to try to get that off the ground. I think that's there's just a little bit of confusion about exactly what the AIA is offering. So I'm going to the Agricultural Society board meeting this Thursday night. So we'll try to get that cleared up a bit. And UC DAP is also doing a lot of work on the fairground site. We had the good fortune of working with their Master of Landscape Architect program to come up with some other really cool visions for the site of what it could be in the future. And then I believe this summer, the bachelor's program is working on some additional planning efforts for the site. So there is progress. It's slow. I think it's steady, but we want to stay on top of that and continue to report back to you every now and then about what's happening at that site. I think that's all we have for you today. Thank you so much again for the time. If you have any questions, we'd be happy to try to answer them.
Okay, thank you both. I'll open it up to Vice President Reese. If you have any questions about Brian's report or Steve's report, you're welcome to ask at this time.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Brian and Scott. This has been, Steve. This is very comprehensive. And as a still relatively new to the board, certainly a lot for me to dive into. One of the things I did want to ask a couple things. One was on the fairgrounds, which I probably need a lot more information on. When you said that there was I guess let me step back. Do we own that property? Does the county own the fairgrounds?
Yes.
Madam Commissioner, Madam President, if I could just real quick, yes, the county does own the property, but there is a perpetual lease granted to the Agricultural Society. So the actual deed of the property includes the concept of a perpetual lease granted to the Agricultural Society, so long as they continue to hold a county fair.
Gotcha. Okay, so they have to run it. And this election that they're talking about, election to members to what board is it? Which board, and how does that election work?
Yes, Madam President, Commissioner Reese. It's one of these unusual, archaic institutions that is set up through ORC, where they have their own special election every November, which you have to be a member of the Agricultural Society, which is a $25 per year member fee. You have to actually have a petition of 10 members of the Agricultural Society to nominate you to be on the election. And then the members do that voting come November. And that is done currently in person at the fairground. So it's a similar system. Soil and Water District also has a similar type of election that doesn't happen with the normal election process that people are all aware of when they go to their polling location. That these are individual board items that are dictated through ORC rules. So it is arcane. It is unusual. Most people don't know about these elections, and it does create kind of a insider knowledge type election. So we are working to make sure that more people know about that opportunity to be on that board and how to participate in that election. That was one of the recommendations out of the task force last year.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. And then they hire they hire the superintendent?
That is correct.
And who pays for it?
Yeah, yes, ma'am. But that is the rub, is that in the past, when the fair was very successful, they were able to generate enough revenue from the fair to make all those payments of staff, materials. And because that was one of the large findings, again, in the task force report, with decreased attendance at the fair, there's less revenue, less money to be able to do the maintenance that's necessary, resulting in the condition of the fairgrounds that we see today.
Gotcha. Yeah, the reason I was just asking how does that work? That's been I appreciate that. I know I'll probably have a lot more questions. I thought that maybe we had any appointments on that board, because at the state level, I was on the state fair board. I was appointed by the governor at that time, and I think that was the only time we had any diversity. So I was just wondering about how we operate as a county, who funds it. And then we have no appointments, right? We have no say and no appointments, but we have to put funding toward it.
Madam President, Madam Commissioner, so there is and I'll have to get back to you on this. There is a state minimum prescribed funding that we have to provide to the fair every year. I think we are providing that amount, maybe a little bit more, but we are not in a position where, say, we pick up like at the end of the year, the unpaid for balance or anything like that. We provide a one-time payment to the fair as our contribution as required by statute but there's not another relationship where we then pick up additional costs at the end of the year or anything like that.
Gotcha.
But that, as Mr. John said, that is one of the issues, is how to go about ensuring the fiscal sustainability of the fair, and that's one of the things that the Fair Task Force is continually trying to work through. But there are other counties and other areas of the state that provide the fair additional dollars, but those are in typically rural areas where they have larger fairs. It's more of a part of the community, et cetera. So that's one of the dynamics that we're struggling with this particular fair.
Thank you. And I'll look forward. I probably have some other questions on that at a later time where I could do a deeper dive in it, so I could just be brought up to speed on how it works. But on the other part, I do like the Mill Creek Bike Trail planning. I just want to say it does look very good that you're able to work with various municipalities and help them with the planning. Kind of bring us up to, up to date in the future. So I think I wanted to thank you for that. Now you mentioned that there's a event in July where you bring in all of the, stakeholders, if you will. Is that outdoors? And I guess my question, Madam President and Commissioner Driehaus, have we looked at the cicada schedule on that?
From what I read, they're coming out sooner than that, like at the end of May, but you bring up a good point. Brian, is that the same as what they used to call the Paddle Fest, or is that something different?
This is something different. This will only be the second time we've had this event, and it's going to happen with the cicadas or without the cicadas. So.
Okay.
Because
So we know what bothers you. We'll have to have some cicadas ready. So anyway.
It's a great thought. We have the Duke Energy grant, and maybe some netting or something is a possibility, and that's a great idea.
Thank you.
Great. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Anything else?
No, that's it. Thank you.
But I was thinking, Vice President Reese was saying she knows she's going to have to get more information. Boy, when you hear about the history of this Hamilton County Fair, and I want to say like way back in 1923 or something, when they said we can do nothing with it other than have a fair. And I have been fighting when I first came, like, we got to figure out something, because this is, I forget the acreage, but it's so large. And so there was some thought at the beginning, maybe to do some development on part of it and do the fair on the other part. But the people that are connected to this fair are really connected, but they're really hanging by a string, even by the recommendations that were done with the committee that looked at what we should do with this fair. I'm glad to hear that Steve was saying that they're, trying to upgrade and all that. I remember going to their their ribbon cutting or their opening in 19. And that place, the buildings were just falling apart unbelievably. So I'm glad they're trying to do the static stuff, but it's just so much more that needs to be done. And so I don't know, I'd like to see if we can do some other stuff along with the fair, but that's another conversation. But to bring up the diversity issue as it relates to the committee, I had appointed Brian Weir, who used to be the mayor of Forest Park, a Caucasian man. And he indicated, I forget if it was Karen Ball or somebody on our staff, Holly, he indicated that how can we have a committee with no diversity, and that he was going to leave the committee if we didn't pull some diversity in, and we were able to bring in some African Americans to that committee to provide exactly what you're saying. So I'm not sure if they're still on there. Well, the committee has ended, but I'm sure they'll be meeting again. So we were also concerned about that. So, okay.
Madam President, if I could just add a quick clarification, you hit it right there at the end. I just wanted to be clear for Commissioner Reese that what you were just referring to was our task force, the Fair Task Force, and not necessarily the Agricultural Society or the Fair Board, but the ad hoc task force that we had set up. So you hit it right there at the end. I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, thank you so much. Okay, Commissioner Driehaus.
Yeah, so let me piggyback on that just a little bit because there was a report that came forward from the task force. So Commissioner Reese, that would be pretty instructive as to the history, both ancient history and recent history of those fairgrounds and our attempt to try to move the agricultural society into a space where they were looking a little differently at that property and utilizing it in a way that not only brought money into the ag society to produce the fair, but maybe think about it some other things. I mean, SPCA was interested in that space. We had some micro farming folks interested in that space. There was industrial users interested in that space. So the task force helped us sort through some of that and what we are and are not allowed to do. And a lot of it's what we are not allowed to do. So as you've just heard. So yeah, you should dig that out. And the folks that were on the task force served for like a year, I think, year and a half, maybe. It took a while to get that together. But anyway, that might be a good reference point. So our hands are a bit tied there, but we're at least making some progress. And as far as the Mill Creek goes, thank you for the report. I just want to say, just an off the cuff to my colleagues, I don't know if you all have paddled the Mill Creek, but I had the opportunity to paddle the Mill Creek with my staff. It's something you won't forget.
I'm sure I won't.
Paddle the Mill Creek. It's really instructive. I've done it more than once. I think Portune actually encouraged me to do it. And, you know, when I was like, well, for heaven's sake, all right, I'll do it. So I did. And it's really an interesting, because you get the kind of the lay of the creek, right? You know, and it's and all the activity alongside and it ebbs and flows, right? There's some places that have parks alongside and bike trails and others that have concrete walls going up. It's just really interesting. So I will encourage you with some caution, because my staff were not as enthusiastic as I was about the creek trip, but it's fun. It's really fun. And the Mill Creek Alliance helped sponsor that. So yeah, and so Madam President, so as far as the bike trails go, and Wade Johnson, who was with the Crown Project, it comes to the TID quite a bit and talks about bike trails and how we are trying to create this great connected trail throughout the county and way beyond, right up to the lake and all over. I will challenge, as I always do, that geographically we make sure that we're hitting all of Hamilton County, because this one's great because it goes straight up the middle, really, and has the Mill Creek as kind of its basis. There's a lot going on the east side too, because there's a lot of connections going on, which, you know, I'm fully supportive of. The west side has not so much activity. And so I just want to remind everybody that in order to connect trails and to keep these trails going, you have to build them to begin with. And so I always am saying that because there just isn't a lot of activity on the west. But I'm told we're getting there. So at least this is straight up the middle, like I said, and helps connect both to the east and the west. So I think it's great. So looking forward to riding some of the trails when the weather gets better and there are no cicadas.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to putting my toe maybe in the Mill Creek. We'll see.
Put a boot on.
Put a boot on. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. But anyway, Brian, I just wanted to thank you for all your hard work, and also Steve Johns. And so you mentioned about the Mill Creek is so much cleaner. You said 2013 compared to 2013 to now, we really, and your graph showed it, we really have made some progress. In addition, the resolution that you mentioned that you'd like for us to consider to sign, if you could send that through, if you haven't already, and we can take a look at it and put it on our agenda. So, and I know I was thinking about Brewster Rhodes and all his canoeing and how active he is with everything. And I think his organization, well, he was with Green Umbrella, I think, but he's doing great work too. So, so thank you both for your report. And I'm really anxious to hear more about the county fair and what they're doing, as we all see it. So thank you both.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, our next item on the agenda is American Rescue Plan stakeholder process update and board discussion. Jeff, take it away.
Thank you, Madam President. Just wanted to provide the board with an update on where we are with the American Rescue Plan. First and foremost, I touched on this in my comments, I believe, at last Thursday's meeting, but we did complete the second external stakeholder meeting last week on Thursday. We heard from a multitude of stakeholder agencies, from Council on Aging to Health Gap, the Hotel Association. We heard from LISC and Easter Seals, the Urban League, the Municipal League, the Board of Realtors, just a variety of entities. And we heard similar types of things that we had heard in the first several rounds, issues ranging from homelessness to poverty alleviation, childcare, affordable housing. We heard emergency preparedness. We continue to hear more and more about the worker shortages that certain industry classifications are seeing. We heard about funding for the arts and nonprofits, convention center support, for the mental health mobile crisis team, as well as revenue replacement support for local municipal governments. So a lot of things that we'd heard about before. So we're taking that and internalizing it as we begin to put together a concept plan to forward back to the board. And with that being said, yesterday, we also received the formal guidance from the Treasury Department. I'm going to share my screen just so folks who may be watching from home can see a little bit about the.
Yes.
Okay. So we received this guidance yesterday around midday, and as well as we also received the formal pathway for applying for the funds, and we took care of that formality today.
Jeff, are you able to expand the screen at all?
Well, I can. It's just a couple of pages here.
Okay.
So
for those that are watching.
Yeah. So this is one page. I'll flip down here in just a second. I don't think I can get both of them on the same page. I think I've got all the content related material from the first page on here.
Okay.
And I'll scroll down in just a second here. So this is actually just a fact sheet associated with the guidance. The actual guidance is around 150 pages long. We are in the process of drilling down through all of the different guidance, but in many respects, I think the guidance hits the main areas of county policy that the board has been most engaged in or interested in. Everything from affordable housing, production, as well as improving the access to housing, childcare, expansion or preservation, workforce training, health infrastructure, everything from vaccine deployment to testing, contact tracing, et cetera. You've got mental health services that are allowable uses, broadband infrastructure. So all these are listed throughout this fact sheet. The fact sheet does a good job of giving some high level information as to what is in the guidance. But again, everything from supporting public health response to addressing the negative economic impacts of COVID-19 and the pandemic, premium pay for essential workers, replacing public sector revenue loss. They're very specific to water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure, as well as focusing on the hardest hit communities and families in the county and in the nation through equity focused services. And there's also some ineligible uses, which most of which we knew about in advance of the guidance. We knew that the funds could not be used to offset a tax reduction or to allow for a tax reduction. We knew that the dollars could not be used to fund or supplement a pension fund, but there were a few surprises as well. So we learned yesterday that unless the dollars flow through as a revenue replacement, that pure infrastructure projects outside of water, sewer, and broadband were not allowable as a direct expense. Again, unless they flow through as revenue replacement into the general revenues of the community. The calculation for determining a revenue loss is something that we are going through as well right now to determine. Again, they have a very specific calculation in terms of how they direct communities to determine whether or not revenue was actually lost. The language for revenue replacement is a bit more restrictive than we had initially anticipated, based upon just what we had read in the initial law that was passed. And there's certain expense categories that were excluded, like debt service, that were just categorically excluded from expenditure. Again, some things that were not really written into the law, but that were provided for in the guidance. So we do know that Treasury is interested in feedback, and they've indicated that they want feedback, they want comments. So some of this is likely to adjust. I'm not sure how significantly it will adjust, but some of it is likely to adjust. So we're just going to need to be a bit flexible as we move forward. Our plan is still to have a draft concept to the Board of County Commissioners early next week, with the concept being that we are prepared for 2 public hearings, likely the following week, maybe one during the day and one in the evening. And the concept plan will be exactly that. It will be a high-level concept. Some of the funding categories will be filled out with a little bit more detail, depending upon the degree of guidance we've received from the board through past policy direction, et cetera. But some of it will be very broad. For instance, an example might be workforce development, where there may be a multitude of ways that we can use dollars to address workforce development and training. And until we complete the public comment process, and until we complete conversations with the board, we may want to take a little bit more time to put the legs on the stool, for lack of a better term, to make sure that we are providing that particular service in a way that is most impactful to the community. So in some instances, you'll see general allocation recommendations, and others a little bit more specifics, and we'll fill in the details as we move forward. Again, we've got through the end of 2024 to spend these dollars. We want to make sure we're getting them on the street and allocated as quickly as we can for the benefit of the community. At the same time, we want to make sure that we're doing this in a way that is most impactful and transformative and sustainable in the community as well. So that's a little bit about the guidance that we received. Again, it's 150 pages. We're still working through it. We've had it for just about 24 hours now. And we are working with our federal consultant, the Ferguson Group, to help us better understand how other communities are looking at it. We'll be working with NACO as well. And finally, commissioners, I should say that we did learn as well yesterday that 2 townships in Hamilton County were added to the list of direct allocation communities. Green Township and Colerain Township is communities over 50,000 in population, and we're receiving positive feedback that perhaps the remaining townships will be pass-through entities through the state of Ohio as well. So we haven't completely put that issue to rest, but the information that we are seeing at this point looks positive. So I just wanted to make sure you were aware of that as well. So with that, commissioners, I'll stop the screen share and happy to answer any questions at this point.
Thank you, Jeff. And I also think that the webinar that they had 2 webinars yesterday to help you with the guidelines that were sent earlier was very helpful. I'm not sure how often they're going to conduct the webinar, but it was helpful. And as I look at that list, broadband, the monies for broadband is just coming from everywhere, which is a great thing. We know we need to be a city, a county that has broadband. So certainly that's an area that we definitely need to partner with the city to make sure we're not being redundant, and also that we're using the funds that are coming from everywhere, along with our funds if we have to. So yes.
I was just saying thank you for that, Madam President. And 2 points to make it on your comment. Number one is as the board had requested, as we come forward with a plan to the board, the plan will include all of, to the degree it's possible at this point, it will include our understanding and estimation of different areas of funding. So the plan that we send to the board will not just focus on the ARP, but also other sources of funding that we know are out there, and recommendations on where to slot certain program categories. And number 2, and I think the board was informed of this perhaps last week, but we did have an initial coordination discussion with the city manager's office last week. Appreciate her time and the time of her staff to begin some coordination discussions. I think we may have another call this week as well. So we are in the process of ensuring that we avoid those major conflicts with the city, which also received a significant amount of ARP funding.
Thank you. Vice President Reese.
Thank you. I just want to piggyback on the broadband piece. I did have a conversation with Senator Sherrod Brown, and he had mentioned, before we got these rules and regulations, he had mentioned that it seems to be this administration is focused on broadband as an but the administration is looking at that's a new jobs pathway. So when we're thinking about infrastructure, and I know we're looking at roads and bridges, which are very important, just I think maybe the reason we're seeing a lot with broadband is because they're looking at it from a jobs perspective. So just as we're putting our plans together, I think having a comprehensive broadband initiative that would cover not only the infrastructure that's needed for broadband, not only the access so people can afford the broadband, but our job training component, we might want to look at how do we wrap around that, because it seems like that's where they're going to be focused on to create more job opportunities within, which would be within our county. So we would need the people to be trained and ready to go if they're going to put a lot of money out there for broadband. It kind of looks like rental assistance, which, they separately took that out, put a lot of money, make sure people can live. And then on the other side, it seems like this broadband piece. And even though I'm for broadband, I just couldn't understand where they were going with it. But now I got a little better understanding. So we may want to look at on our job training side of things to add that part in to have our people ready for the jobs, for the investments that are going to be made with broadband. So just wanted to add that, and certainly looking forward to more on, what we're able to do and are not going to be able to do as well.
Thank you. Commissioner Dreehouse. You're muted.
Oh, I don't know how that happened. I don't know how you're planning to organize, Jeff, the report to the commissioners and how it's going to be organized. But last time we had the 4 buckets, which made it pretty easy for us to understand some of the kind of long-term, short-term stuff. And so I'm wondering if no matter what it looks like, if we can, as a group, get some understanding of what dollars are being used to kind of shore up county operations, some of that just basic services stuff, some then other dollars that are still needed for kind of a short-term emergency need in the community, which I think we all continue to hear about. And then another category that talks more about the long-term transformational issues that related to housing and childcare and mental health and that kind of stuff. So is that what you're thinking, or are you thinking about organizing related to different buckets of interest?
A little bit of both, Commissioner, but I do think it will be broad. It will be similar in regard to how we've done the CARES Act, where there will be big buckets, county internal operations, health infrastructure, responding to the immediate crisis, that type of thing. We haven't completely named them yet, but there will be big bins where you'll be able to see kind of the short-term, immediate, critical activities, what helps with internal county operations, and maybe some of the longer-term strategic things as well. So it'll be divided. Again, we haven't completed the architecture of it, but it'll be similar to that.
Okay, that's helpful. Yeah, I just hope it's easy to digest, because I know that guidance is 150 pages long.
Yeah, exactly. And one thing that I hope to have that we did not do with the last CARES Act plan is a short narrative as well. So whatever is there on the table, you remember how we did with the CARES Act, it was you basically received a table And we went through and we described each of those programs in depth in a session like this, and we'll still do that. But I do want to provide the board with something that is just, again, not pages and pages, but that does have some sort of a program narrative for each line, so you can at least understand what our thinking is behind it. And that should help with the make sure we're all on the same page with the conversation.
Okay, great. And then just one last thing related to timing. So you said you'd have something to us within the next week or two. The public hearings will follow. Madam President, I'm just curious as to the timing of those. Do you have a sense, will it likely be, you think, at the end of the month? Is that kind of, I just want to get a sense of when those might come, because as the gentleman today, as we all said, make sure you come to the public hearings. And so I think I just want to get that information out as quickly as we have it.
Thank you. And so Jeff and I talked about that on Monday, and we're, looking at the end of the month. We know, of course, we're not concerned about summer recess at all. We want to get this done. So we don't have a definite date, but we want to make sure that administration has an ability to digest all of this and then submit to us. I heard Jeff say, and within the week, not this week, but next week, we'll have what we need. So definitely in May, we'll have public hearing, at least 2 public hearings is what we're looking toward to do. I don't have the date. But just to piggyback, I don't know if that helps.
And I assume they'll be virtual?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So I know you're, I know, but anyway, they'll be virtual because
I'm itching to get back in person. But
I know you are. You can take the, anyway. Okay. So I wanted to bring up what both of my Madam Commissioners had indicated. Great points about this American Rescue Plan, but it kind of goes into, well, Commissioner Driehaus was talking about, are we going to look futuristically? And I think we do. And when I spoke a couple of weeks ago about our impact and our immediate impact, what we can do, and the lasting impact, and then the structural impact, I won't go through all that. But what I'm saying is we're sitting here talking about all this money that came forth with the CARES Act funding and now the American Rescue Plan. This is like something that has never happened before. And so whether or not it'll happen again in our lifetimes, who knows? But this is really something to be that we should really apply and be excited about. And so it brings up the point to go back to Commissioner Driehaus. What can we do now, even if we do it now, that will last, that will have a lasting effect? And it goes back to Vice President Reese about the structural component of the broadband. So, because we never know when this is going to happen again. And so we have to not only take care of the immediate concerns, but look toward the future of how can we impact the generations that are coming up, and that we can sustain what we're doing, and it can have a lasting effect on our community. So this is really something to be talking about. So I just had to say that. Okay, I don't have any other additional comments. I can't wait to get what the administration is going to give us, and we need to give him what we have, and we will definitely make sure that happens. I'm hoping by the end of the week he will have everything that he needs from us as it relates to the American Rescue Plan, and still looking ahead for our own budget that is due, our information that is due by June the 1st for our budget for 2022. Any additional comments? Okay, and then, I had heard that some people that are working remotely, some major companies have decided that their staff are never coming back, that it's been working for them. I know my sister works in a high-level health community organization, and they're gonna just spend the rest of the year out doing what they do. So some are able to do it and others are not. Of course, the city is losing some money from people not being here working. But anyway, we'll move on. Any additional comments that we need to discuss? Vice President Reese.
No additional comments.
Okay. Commissioner Driehaus.
No comments.
Okay. Thank you. So at this time, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Second.
Commissioner Summer Dumas,
Yes.
Commissioner Reese,
Yes.
Commissioner Dreehouse.
Yes.
Thank you.